I just want to say this real quick. Despite anything I say in the title of the video and all that stuff, go watch Arcane. It's actually a series that everybody should be supporting because it's very unique. Has a lot of hard work put into it, which is rare these days. Yeah, and if you haven't seen the show, like, why are you on this video? Go watch it. This video obviously has spoilers.
No shit!
You're a class act, sister. Sister thought I missed her.
So many years ago, I played a not so popular game called League of Legends by Riot Games. Woo! And just like anybody who's played it, whether you love it or whether you hate it, we all hate it. So when I finally decided to be human again, I quit the game. But even after I quit the game, there was one thing that always still stuck with me, and that was the lore. League has all these interesting worlds and characters with different motives, ideologies, histories, which was something I always enjoyed reading about every time I clicked on a champion's icon. So when Arcane was announced, I was honestly excited to see a piece of that world come to life. But you guys already probably know I was disappointed with it because you read the title. But before I get into why I was disappointed, I actually want to talk about the good things the show did, because it did some pretty good things and I actually want to recognize them. So first off, Arcane did an amazing job with making sure that regardless of if you know the lore or if you've played League or not, that anybody can watch this show. But for those who have played League, it's like a little cherry on top, seeing all these characters that you know and love coming in as the story progresses.
Ekko, what's going on with that?
Ekko?
It's your boy.
That's my boy.
Not only that, but the world and its world building is so well done. Like, Piltover is this beautiful, bright city with all this advanced technology. Every building and every uniform has some sort of gold on it, so you know that the people that live there are well off. Then you got this filthy city with shady people and dirty air. Everybody's looking like they're struggling to make ends meet, and it looks like you gotta watch your back at every single corner. God, I hate California. Wait, we're talking about Zon? They really did a good job with setting these two cities apart with their art and animation. Like, even the way people carry themselves, depending on what city is being focused on, is very different. And speaking of the art and animation, every frame of this show looks like a moving painting. Some of the scenes absolutely blew me away too. Like, it almost feels illegal even trying to save a frame of this show as a wallpaper, because it almost looks like it belongs in a museum somewhere. But the thing that impacted me as much as the art and animation was the first 3 episodes, because those 3 episodes were so well done. I sat down and watched them every day until the next 3 episodes came on. Like, every episode is so well paced, and some of these characters aren't even in League, and yet I cared about them in the first 3 episodes. And the dialogue and interactions feel so organic that it just feels like you're just watching regular people just talk. I even really like Silco too. Like, I almost thought his motives were gonna be like the cliche villain motives where, oh, world bad, so I hurt world, blah blah blah. But he actually has motives and goals that actually make sense. And not to mention, the person who voices Silco is kind of amazing. Like, I honestly want to marry this dude's voice. No homo. And I want to marry these characters' voices as well. No homo. I love Vi and her crew's relationship. I love seeing how Jinx and Vi mirror Vander and Silco. I love seeing Jayce and Viktor trying to overcome the magic bias and trying to create something completely new to change the world.
You've actually done it. But just because it can be done doesn't mean... Will you please stop hovering?
I'm not sure how to do that, sir.
So seeing all this and being heavily impacted, I was like, oh, okay, so now I have so many questions, like, what's gonna happen to Jayce? Like, is there gonna be like a new Hextech era? Is the council gonna accept magic now? What's gonna happen to the underground now that Vander's dead? Will Silco take over? What's gonna happen to Vi and Jinx? How do they feel? I was interested in all of that. And my questions were answered kind of, and this is where my issues start to come in, because they do give you the answer, but they just zoom past all of the build up to it with the time skip. Like, you know how your math teacher would give you an assignment and you just write the answer down because you already know it, and she'd walk up and be like, nah, I want to see the equation. Well, guess what? I want to see the equation.
I don't really feel like it.
Zooming past all that stuff makes things confusing, makes the pacing feel too fast, and makes you feel disconnected from the characters you're supposed to care about. Like, I would have loved to have seen Jinx's life after Vander's death and after Vi leaves, because then I would have seen her going through her grief and mental health issues and feeling bad for her. And not only that, but I also would have just known that she has mental health issues in general. Because after the time skip, they just show her older and with mental health issues now. And they let you know this by like a flashback that we saw last episode and some dead people in the background. And like I've said before, I've played League, so I knew that she was crazy already. I would have just liked to have seen the build up to it so that way I understand where she's coming from. Like even mental health issues aside, even in the story, I didn't even know that Jinx thought Vi was dead until Silco says it later. And even Jayce and Viktor's struggles and accomplishments with Hextech are skipped over, and now all of a sudden Jayce is giving a speech on Progress Day while Viktor's health is looking more crippled than he is. Like they even made Caitlyn a major character in the show, when before she was just some kid that talked to Jayce. Now she's a cop, going undercover, doing all this stuff, trying to find the kingpin of the underworld. Like it would have been nice to see why she's a cop and why she's doing all this and why she's so obsessed with finding the guy behind all of it. It feels like 9 episodes was not enough for this story because they crammed so many characters into the story that don't really matter. They rush character relationships, they rush character development, and they cram so many backstories into it. Like some of the characters' stories and their relationships with other people just don't feel fully fleshed out. Like one of the best and earliest examples of this is Heimerdinger. They honestly should have just taken this dude out of the show after the first time he tried to stop Jayce, cause he adds nothing to the show. He's literally just there to say magic bad and then have a PTSD flashback of an image zooming out.
But how can you? That's a burden that only I here carry. Time. I've seen this power.
Even after he finally acknowledges the good that magic has done for Piltover and the rest of the world, he just flips the script again later on and says magic bad. Like I didn't even feel bad when he got voted off the council. I just didn't care. Which by the way, why all of a sudden do you care about what happens to the Undercity? Like you could have cared more about it when you were a council member, but now all of a sudden you do when you're fired. And even when he went there, he didn't even do anything. He just shows a magic trick and then walks back. Like at least give somebody your cloak, man. The same thing happens with Jayce and Mel in the story. We barely see them talk or interact, but all of a sudden Mel makes Jayce feel like nothing is impossible.
Why did you come to me with this?
Nothing feels impossible when I'm with you.
Alrighty then.
And you can tell Mel likes Jayce, but again, there's never really any interaction between them or build-up that we see on screen. If anything, the thing that Jayce says to Mel should be said to Viktor, but instead he's just dying in a corner somewhere. Like Jayce says they're like brothers, but he doesn't even say anything when he's clearly sick. Get this man to a hospital. And it's the same for Caitlyn and Vi as well. Like she just gets Vi out of prison and then it's just implying that they're gay for the rest of the story.
And what do I have?
You're hot, Cupcake. So what'll it be, man or woman?
This is all I've seen. Easy, easy, easy.
Like even when Vi opens up to Caitlyn, it doesn't feel earned because they barely talked in the story. But now all of a sudden Vi feels comfortable opening up to Caitlyn and telling her her whole life story. Yeah, you know, I got this really big pimple on my back. Oh man, that must suck. And sometimes I cry when I pee the bed. My social security number is 61709. Like even when Vi is about to leave Piltover, Caitlyn says this.
Okay, it wasn't enough. Top side and bottom, oil and water, that's all there is.
What about us?
What? What about us? You've known each other for 2 days. There is no us. Also, side note, how did she manage to find Jayce's weapon place if she said she was leaving Piltover? Then there was also Jinx and Silco where I just couldn't tell what their relationship was. I was like, oh, it's parental. And then other scenes I was like, oh, well, maybe not. So because of these rushed characters and character relationships, they decide to do something I just don't really get, which is just keep throwing in more characters even though they add nothing to the story. Like, is Mel's mom pretty cool? Yeah, she's pretty cool, but what does she add to the overall story? I love Ekko. That's my boy. But what does he add to the story? Seeing Sin's just cool even though I hate him in League, but does he add anything to the story either? It's like you get a character, you get a character, everybody gets a character. Like even these guys, we've literally never seen them before. But then all of a sudden they play this part and oh, we're gonna overthrow Silco because he just likes Jinx so much. And like I think they're supposed to be like kingpins or like crime lords or something like that, but they don't even look like that. They just look like judges for America's Next Top Model. Your time is up, Silco. You're very old man. The time of the new age is now. I used to think you were something special, but now you When they do this, they leave less room for interesting stories and characters. Like, even though I didn't like the backstory for Viktor, I was actually really interested in seeing how his story would play out. And then they just zoom past it because he killed some girl we knew nothing about. And Jayce gets the same treatment too. Like, they even skip past something that would have been really cool to explore. When Jayce is like, why did you go down to the Undercity? Don't you know how dangerous they are? And Viktor's like, Jayce, I'm from the Undercity. And it even seemed like they were just setting up something there and then they just skipped it. It's just so poorly paced, and it feels like a crime for a show with so much potential. And I can nitpick a lot of the other stuff that bothered me, but I want to say this final thing instead. Riot, I don't know if it was just you guys testing the waters or budget. Maybe it was even Netflix, but please add more episodes to Arcane. People already think this show is good, but it can be so much more if you let it be. Season 2 was already announced, so I'm hoping it's not set in stone that it's just 9 episodes only already, but we'll see eventually either way. Anyways, review over.